So I know often in Hawaii we talk about high-paying jobs as good jobs because, well, the cost of living is so high, and if you have a high-paying job, it helps to afford a lifestyle here. But we often don't talk about tough jobs that maybe don't get acknowledged so much, that are extremely valuable to our way of life. So I want to talk about 3 jobs in Hawaii that I think are fairly tough. And just speaking from experience, I did 2 of these 3 jobs. But still, I wanted to acknowledge these jobs and by extension, these people, because without them doing these jobs, it would be fairly tough. And this doesn't mean that other people don't work hard. When a lot of people work multiple jobs, it can be very challenging to just logistically go from one job to the next, scheduling hours and just trying to figure out how it's all going to work. So this really isn't about who has the hardest performing job. It's just that I acknowledge that these jobs can be difficult and just want to talk about them here. Hello from Hawaii. By the way, we're here at Booth Park, one of the, what I think is honestly a hidden gem here near downtown. Downtown's right there. Punchbowl being right over there. This is a great park for kids. They have swings and it's just a pool. It's just a really good park. So if you're in town, I highly recommend you check it out. Now the first job I want to mention is Custodians. And this is a very repetitive job. I mean, you're basically cleaning up the same things over and over. Now in this type of job, you're not really supposed to be seen, but hey, if the paper towels aren't there or the bathroom is a mess, man, you are absolutely vital in that moment. And I really appreciate what they do, and I try my best to at least acknowledge them or to say hi whenever I see them in our building, or if, let's say, they happen to be a custodian at work or somewhere else, I try to at least acknowledge them and say hi, because I know how that feels. Because when I worked as a custodian in Oregon, I felt like I was invisible at times. My job was, again, primarily kitchen floors, bathrooms. I'd be cleaning the glass exhibits sometimes, taking out the trash. And if you ever had to deal with trash, you know, it's the trash cans and the trash liners are not lined up. And so it's actually quite difficult to tie it and make sure that it doesn't slip out when a lot of trash gets settled in there. But the most important job that I had was definitely paper towels in the bathrooms. And if there weren't any paper towels, people are gonna not wash their hands, or they're gonna have to, you know, use their shirt or pants. And one of the most important lessons that I learned from that job as a custodian, again, having just graduated from college with 2 degrees, was humility. And the thing is, no matter how great a job you do as a custodian, hardly anybody notices. We pressure wash sidewalks, and I mean, they were real nice. The before and after, absolutely amazing. But people just walk over our work and they hardly noticed. And not that we did it for the thanks, but no one really ever noticed. But that experience as a custodian was what I needed at the time, despite how I felt back then. And it was hard to do the work at times. But I really felt like that experience was valuable to me, because it taught me that there are a lot of people that make things happen in a workplace, in a park, or just even somewhere like this, right? There's a lot of people that make things happen that you just don't realize, that we take for granted. And absolutely, being a custodian is one of those jobs that, frankly, you're taking for granted a lot. Because can you imagine one day without the boss, or heck, even maybe the CEO of a company? The company is probably gonna be okay. But you go one day without the custodians, trash starts to pile up, no toilet paper in the bathrooms, messes on the floor. It starts to get pretty bad. All this to say that I think custodians deserve a lot more recognition. And maybe it's not necessarily a salary thing, but at least recognition of people saying hi. Just saying hi whenever you see a custodian or someone cleaning up, because without them, things will look a lot different. By the way, there's so many chickens around here. Crazy, all these chickens. Look at those chickens. The second job I want to mention is early education or preschool teachers. Now, I've always had an appreciation for teachers or educators, but let me say, after having a couple of kids that are preschool level age, my appreciation for those early education teachers has just exponentially grown. Now, I remember back in high school, I took this childcare class for a quarter, a semester, and in that class, we had to come up with lesson plans for preschool kids, and our school would partner with a local preschool, and we would go into their classroom maybe once or twice a week, and we would try to teach the kids. We'd watch the kids, and we each got assigned a certain kid. And so I remember creating all these wonderful lesson plans, and my teacher would overlook them and see like, oh, okay, well, we'll see how that goes. I'm super ambitious, right? I'm thinking the kid's gonna be able to, do dancing and drawing, and you're gonna learn about letters and puzzles and all these things. And then I got there. Kid was really great. He's very bright, but all he wanted to do was just draw. And so sometimes you can prepare all these wonderful lesson plans, but they don't necessarily work out. But now that I have 2 kids in preschool, one about to start and another that just completed 1 full year, I can just say that I'm so thankful for all of the teachers, administrators, everyone involved in both of their preschools. It's tremendously helpful for me and my wife to know that they're being watched over and they're being taught things and they're just getting used to that classroom dynamic. And just as an aside here to any parents thinking about preschool, there's like the list of like good schools. And if you don't get your preschool kid into one of those schools, it doesn't feed them into the private school, and then, oh gosh, the whole thing, right? But I just want to say from our experience, as parents, I would recommend trying to find the school that you think fits your child best. And that's hard when that school is not on the top 10 list. And I'm really proud of the schools that we picked for both our boys because they fit them perfectly. They're 2 different schools, but the school that we picked for our older son, I am so glad that we picked that school. He's doing so well, and I can't imagine him in any other school. And even if we got a free ride to one of the more expensive, one of the more elite preschools, I would still say no, because this school is perfect for his personality, perfect for him. The teachers and the staff, they care about him. And as a parent, that's ultimately what I want. And when it comes to my younger son, it was a tough choice because he got into 2, 3 pretty great schools, and that's an abundance of choices. And we're really thankful that we have that choice. But it was really hard to say no to a couple of places because we're like, is this the right place or is it not the right place? And we weren't sure. But ultimately, I'm glad that we picked the place that we did. I think it's gonna be a great fit for him, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he does. And maybe things change and we have to send him to a different school. But just seeing him in that classroom with some of those kids, man, it just fit. And it's really comforting to know as a parent, like when you make a good choice for your kid and things work out, it's like, yeah, it's really nice. It's kind of like a home run. But all this to say that I know that we know that early childhood education and preschool is so important, and the state is investing more money into that, which I think is wonderful. I wish they'd kind of speed that up a little bit and not just building out the classrooms, but really thinking about how they're gonna get some teachers to staff some of these classes. I think that's probably more important at this point. But we all know that early childhood education is very important. I just wish that we did more to acknowledge the work of those teachers in particular. And the third job I want to mention is security officers. And frankly, I didn't realize how many security officers I interact with on a daily basis. We have some in our condo, they're at work, if you go to the library, heck, even if you go to the mall, there they are. And although I've never actually been a security officer, I can imagine it's a very challenging job. Right? You have to deal with certain types of people. You're there to somewhat protect and provide security, mainly for the general public from, people who are, messing around or doing things they're not supposed to. It must be a really hard job because you have the responsibilities of, let's just say, law enforcement, but you actually don't have any of the power of law enforcement. And so if anything were to happen, there's not really much that you can do. And no, I'm not suggesting that security officers become armed, but can you imagine trying to deal with someone who maybe they're not all there, or they're being extremely violent or unreasonable, and you can't really touch them? They can touch you, they can mess with you, but you can't really grab them or touch them because, you know, you might get sued or might get fired. And again, just feeling that powerlessness to really stop a criminal from even something as simple as stealing, I think that's got to be pretty tough. And maybe that's not their job. Maybe their job isn't to actually stop crime, but to somewhat prevent it or deter it from happening, just to make the rest of us feel better that there's someone around whose job it is to just kind of watch over everyone. But if that's the case, to me, I feel like I'm risking my health and safety over public perception. But I can just say that I really appreciate them being there. I mean, just the security in our building. I've heard them several times where they've had to deal with people who just randomly walk around our building, and they go out there and they talk to the people, and sometimes they have to escort them off the property. And rather than me having to call the police, it's just nice to know that someone could just do it right there. And so I just wanted to acknowledge these jobs. You know, it's tough, I know. It's tough for a lot of people. And I'm fortunate that I work one job, and it's a job primarily in an office. So I never really have to go out and, you know, deal with the public. I don't have to deal with little kids. I'm not there cleaning up after people all day. But I have done some of those things, and I know how hard it can be. For anyone out there who's doing those types of jobs, I hope that you know that we see you. Some of us, we see you, and we appreciate you. And there's no custodian appreciation day. There's no security officer appreciation day. There's probably a preschool teacher appreciation day, but I know that you don't get a lot of acknowledgement. But I do hope that you know that people recognize what you do and that it's important. So thanks for watching, and aloha.
Hello, hello.